few of these motorcycles that actually have that front seat is how comfortable they are. And you actually ride one and you're really shocked.
Big twin touring bike.
Hey Dave, got another PhD program to watch. You about ready?
Almost. What's this one about?
It's the one you've been waiting for.
Not rear suspensions part 2.
That's it.
Lord.
Our world is covered with bumps. Bumps on roads are the public enemies of all who ride on wheels. When a wheel passes over a rough surface, you get a jolt. When the jolts come too close together, you get vibrations, which are usually unpleasant. As early as 1665, leather springs were used on coaches. When men began to travel faster on wheels, the rate of bump vibrations increased, and better springs were needed. Then, the first elliptical steel spring was patented by Obadiah Elliott in 1804. In the meantime, another way to absorb vibration had been discovered: rubber. It was first used on carriage wheels in 1795. Pneumatic tires came in 1888, but were not in general use until the automobile became popular.
The first suspension that you really find on early Harley Davidsons, really it's not like a suspension system at all. It's basically what you find on a bicycle. It's a rigid front fork. It is rigid rear seat stays on the rear end, and basically you've got a sprung saddle for the rider to sit in which they're getting maybe a half an inch of travel, so it's not really much for comfort. The full floating seat first shows up on Harley Davidson motorcycles in 1912, and this was an advancement over the previous sprung seats in that it also had a spring that ran down through the seat post that allowed about 4 inches of travel, which was a lot more than what the rider got before. They underwent minor improvements over the next few decades, but that was basically what the rider had for suspension on the rear end of the bike for quite a while.
What's amazing to me, I have a few of these motorcycles that actually have that sprung seat, is how comfortable they are. And you actually ride one and you're really shocked about how comfortable it is. What you don't see is as soon as one of your friends passes you on a rigid like yours, you see the rear wheel violently going up and down in the frame and shaking all of the componentry in the motorcycle. That is something that it reminds you of, why maybe that's not the greatest execution of suspension. So of course that's why we moved on to actually sprung rear suspensions.
The Duo Glide. Here's the baby that will put you on top and out front wherever you ride. 74 cubic inches of motion-packed power. Cradled in the strong arms of 2 sets of sure, steady shock absorbers. Yes, we said 2 sets of shocks. Up front, it's the famous Hydroglide force. And where you want it most, swinging arm suspension with hydraulically damped shock absorbers.
Rear suspension first shows up on Harley Davidson big twin motorcycles for the 1958 model year. It's got rear shock absorbers now that attach to the swing arm on the lower end and then on the frame on the higher end. But they're very visible, and they were styled and they were chrome plated. But what you had before was this hardtail look.
The broad nature of a hardtail is it's even more simplicity. It's fewer visible parts. There is value in the fact that there was that sweeping line from steering head all the way to the center point of the rear wheel, not interrupted by a swing arm and shock absorbers, which was the conventional suspension setup at the time.
If you look back at the early 70s, we didn't have anything other than our big twin touring bike and a Sportster. Back in those years, we even talked about a hardtail, but that would not be the right move for our company to have no rear suspension.
Hardtails also had an appeal in that they were more badass. It was a more rugged motorcycle. To ride around on a hardtail, you had to be, in theory, a grittier, tougher kind of guy, but they were punishing to ride, especially at speed on the wrong roads.
I was always interested in the next variation of a stripped-down big twin that had buried rear suspension, so we could really develop something that looked like a hardtail.
I think that's the context of how the Softail got started. Is we want the look of the hardtail, but we need the function of a suspended rear wheel.
But that would not be the right move for our company to have no real suspension.
Hardtail also had an appeal
Back in history, our bikes were hardtails, right? So we took the steering, neck, all the way down to the rear axle.
you had to be
A line that
very,
particularly
very
that. To me, one of the most beautiful executions of that line is in the 1936 Knucklehead. You could walk into the museum right now and look at that bike and understand that line, how beautiful it is, uninterrupted. So that particular line is very powerful in the visual DNA of Harley Davidson, and we always look to it and bring it forward.
In 1984, it was the first Softail motorcycle, and it was groundbreaking because it had a look that was very true to Harley Davidson heritage. Like there was no visible suspension, and yet it had a very unique longitudinally mounted dual shock system, and so it really kind of turned big twin cruisers on their ear.
Model year 2000, we have to package the twin cam. The powers that be decided, well, let's do a pretty significant refresh of the chassis along with one new engine.
We hadn't really touched the architecture of Softail since the advent of twin cam, but it was time to upgrade the overall riding experience.
How do we take these iconic Softails and make them all new, but yet familiar to customers?
Before we really put pencil to paper, we took our customer research and analyzed that with our marketing partners. From there, we brainstormed in sketch form.
We do two-dimensional drawings, and we do so many of them. We have a whole studio sketching every model.
I start sketching, thinking about my buddies, the customers, and myself. What do I want? What do they want? And the biggest thing is not to forget this is coming from Harley Davidson.
Once we've chosen the 2D direction, we have to go to 3D. Because every Harley Davidson is more sculpture, and we can't understand it until we walk around it.
We start by taking the styling model of this is what it's like to look like. And you then put that through a structural optimization to determine what's the most efficient structure to carry those loads.
Masses and where they get placed is a very important thing. And people don't always think about, like, where do my mirrors go? How heavy are they? What about the mass of my saddlebags? How do I attach them?
Everything has to fit, package, assemble, be serviceable. At the end of the day, it has to look awesome.
We do a lot of work in the virtual world, so there's a lot of digital modeling, there's a lot of 3D design, there's a lot of digital testing also that we do prior to even building the parts.
It's this convergence of style and science to get to a shape that is very pleasing to the customer and is functional to the purpose.
Then once we build parts, we put them together and test them in the lab.
The structures lab essentially tests pretty much all of the components on the motorcycle, both from an individual component to subsystems and then finally to a full vehicle. We start off actually collecting data at our proving grounds in Arizona.
We go over from every type of small bump, large bump, cobblestone,
Broken concrete, railroad tracks, bridge grades, everything you could imagine that you would ever maybe encounter on a ride. We have all those dense track that we run over thousands of times.
We bring the vehicle back here with the instrumentation, and then we reproduce those measured responses on this rig.
We can take what is hundreds of thousands of customer miles and decades of customer history and put that same amount of damage into these parts in a matter of days.
We abuse bikes, so we put it through a lot harsher conditions than you ever.
And from there on, it's refined. It's pulling in our supply partners, our manufacturing partners, to then people, and you can count on those bikes going together the same way every single time.
All the way through the project, we
we had our eyes on the finish line of what it would look like when we were finally able to unveil these motorcycles and customers got a chance to throw a leg over one and ride one.
I've worked on countless new programs, but there's nothing of this magnitude. And I hope, when people ride the bikes, and I hope they enjoy them and they get off that bike and say, yeah, that bike feels right. That is exciting. I don't know how you did that, but it's awesome.
If you look back at the early 70s, we didn't have anything other than our big twin touring bike.
American history of